Well, good Thursday evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? It's been a busy week here in the KCRA3 newsroom. Of course, we're ramping up for the Olympics, we're ramping up for the Super Bowl, and hopefully in the weather department, we're ramping up for finally talking about some rain and snow. I know we had some at the beginning of last week, about 1/10 of an inch of rain for Sacramento, 2 or 3 inches of snow at Donner Summit. We need a lot more. So we're going to talk about, we talked last time about the status of the snowpack in California, which hasn't changed since Tuesday. We're somewhere around 58, 59% of what's normal for this time of the year. We're about 1/3 of where we need to be for our overall snowpack. But we're going to take a bigger view, and we're going to look at the West as a whole. So pretty much everywhere along into the west of the Rockies. We'll go state by state. Found some data that's interesting and, well, a little concerning depending on where you are and maybe what some of your recreating or what some of your livelihood depends on. So we'll look at that. Talk about what a snow drought is. It's a word that's been going around a little bit more, and it's a real thing. It's tough to define, just like drought. But this is specifically with snow, obviously. But we're going to look at a pattern change that's coming for next week. If you've been paying attention to the forecast, you've been looking at your phone, hopefully watching us, you know that the next week is going to be cooler than what we have this week. We're close to 70 degrees right now in the valley. Next week, about 10 to 15 degrees cooler, and it will come with some unsettled weather. Right now, it doesn't look like a lot of rain or snow, but we've got at least a few chances at it, which we like to see the consistency there. And this is the kind of pattern that may stick around for a couple of weeks. So it could take us through the second half of February. Doesn't look like it's going to make up for a dry, 5, almost 6 weeks at this point, but something is always better than nothing. And finally, we're going to look at the Olympics. We're going to look at some of the geography that we're talking about. I'm a meteorologist. Geography kind of goes hand in hand. And I find myself, if I look at a map for one thing, I kind of go down rabbit holes. So maybe we'll go down one of those little rabbit holes together, and we'll just look at overall at the weather for the next couple of days for competition. Because we've heard from Deirdre Fitzpatrick, who's over there as part of the Hearst Olympics team. She's gone to every Olympics for, I think it's like the last 20 years at this point. Yeah, it's been rainy. It's been tough for them to get their stuff done, and kind of a bummer for the last minute preps. But with the opening ceremonies coming up tomorrow night, we'll take a look at what we're expecting there. So a lot to get to. But of course, if you've got your own questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I'm watching my comments on my Facebook page here on my phone, watching the KCRA page over on my computer, watching YouTube as well. So I'll pause every now and again, flip through the comments. Keep them polite, please. That always helps. But without further ado, let's start off with some satellite imagery. We'll just start with the maps. So this is not current because it's a visible satellite image, and obviously the sun is down. But this is a NASA daily high-resolution snapshot of Northern California. It was taken this morning, so this was the fog. It got kind of soupy around Sacramento. My place was socked in until like 9:30 or so. And we had this ribbon of fog along the west side of the valley. Notice how green the vegetation is on the east side of the valley and into the foothills. The coastal hills are looking nice and green too. And we've got a clear view of our snowpack, at least what we have. I can zoom out here. This is the North Sierra. Yikes. We need a lot more than that. Still okay amounts of snow around Tahoe. It's a lot less than what we should have at this point in the season, but I was just skiing up there last weekend. The big resorts have lots of their runs open. Some of the expert terrain is closed down, but I'm no expert skier. So for me, that was okay. The South Sierra is doing a little bit better. Of course, if you're at all familiar with how the geography of the Sierra works, you know that the South Sierra has the highest altitude peaks out of the mountain range. So peaks stick up higher in elevation. They're able to catch some of those higher snowstorms, which we've had storms come through in the fall and early winter, but they were warmer systems, so higher elevation peaks are going to pick up more of that snow. But let's keep zooming out here. This is a really cool website. Again, it's called NASA Worldview, and anybody can look at it at any time. It's just these daily snapshots that go back, I think, something like 20 years. So it's just cool to see how the weather evolves. but we're looking for snow elsewhere. This is cloud cover and probably some valley fog in northern Oregon and southern Washington. You can see little bits of snow in the Cascades there, some snow in central and northern Idaho. Not a lot of snow here in Utah. Look how close we can get. This is so neat. That's not good. I'll show you some of the numbers here in just a bit. Here's Colorado. Denver's up here somewhere-ish. So the higher peaks in western Colorado have some snow, but the Front Range has basically nothing. Arizona, New Mexico, not much going on there either. So starting to see the phrase snow drought get tossed around a little bit here. What you're looking at is a map of all the different watersheds across the western U.S., and the numbers are representing the amount of snowpack compared to average. Come back on camera here for a second. So when we talk about the snowpack for Northern California, usually we break it down to the North Sierra, the Central Sierra, the South Sierra. That's just how the Department of Water Resources has it broken up on their website. But remember, the snowpack is essentially how much water we would get if we were to melt down all of the snow in the Sierra on average. It's an average number. It's not perfect, but it just tries to give us ideas. Sometimes we report that number to you as a percentage, a percent of what's normal for this time of the year. That's what all of these numbers are across all the water basins in the West. Areas shaded in red, that's where the snowpack is currently less than 50% of normal. And if you look closely here, parts of Oregon, 25% of normal, 23% of normal, 33% of normal. Utah, 36% of normal, 21% of normal. 46% of normal, 48% of normal in parts of Colorado. There are some areas that are doing fine. Western Wyoming seems to be, kind of the sweet spot there. Some higher elevation mountains. They're close to normal essentially as far as the western part of the state. But all of this area in red, that's where the snowpack is currently less than 50% of normal. So California is certainly not alone in our relative lack of snow. But remember on Tuesday we talked about how, yes, there's a shortage of snow, a snow drought, if you will, but precipitation numbers, depending on how you look at them, are actually pretty close to what would be normal for this time of the year. And we can say the same for a lot of places in the West too. So this is the percent of total precipitation. That's rain and melted snow. Notice these values for California in the 90s, close to normal. Even some of the areas where we were really hurting for snow, like Utah, like Colorado, are between 70 and 90% of normal as far as precipitation goes, which obviously is still below normal, but better with what the snow numbers reflect. So what does this tell us? Well, precipitation-wise, if you were to just look at precipitation, you would say, oh, things are going okay. But a lack of snow for California and for the West, first of all, short-term concern is places like ski resorts and other businesses and economies that revolve around that snow being there. Their businesses are hurting. People aren't, seeking out, they're not going to the ski resorts. They're not, they're not doing the things they would do if snow were there and were widespread. So that's a short-term concern, not just for Tahoe, but for the resorts in Colorado, for the resorts in Utah. But long-term, a lack of snowpack in one season, it kind of puts a pinch on the water supply, because we talk about in California, our snowpack on average is about 30% of our typical water supply. If we go one season where we're short of average, water managers have to obviously make up for that lack, but when we get into 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row with shortage, that's where we get into some trouble. It's the same thing that applies across the West, right? That snowpack is kind of a natural reservoir that melts down through the late spring and summer and keeps some of those big reservoirs replenished. So going back to that snowpack map, when you see these shortages in Colorado and Arizona and Utah, that's the Colorado River Basin. So big snow shortages there are not good for Lake Powell, for Lake Mead, which have been hurting for water storage for a while. So that's what the numbers show. It's not a pretty picture across the West right now. We are going to get a pattern change. I'm not saying it's going to fix everything, but at least it adds a little bit of positivity and hopefully a little bit of short-term relief there. All right, one more thing I just want to show you some of the numbers here, just to show you that this isn't coming from me. I'm not just pulling up numbers, making up stuff about a snow drought. This is a report that was released today by the National Integrated Drought Information System, NIDIS. I'm not sure if they pronounce that as a word, but they put these summaries out once a month, just sharing some of the highlights, some of the data. The graphs that I showed you are from this report. But look at some of the stats that they put out in here, some of their key points. On February 1st, the western U.S., the snowpack, the snow cover was at its lowest in satellite history. So since 2001, the amount of area covered by snow in the West is at its lowest point. Yikes. Oregon, Colorado, and Utah reported record low statewide snowpack, with those numbers going back to the 1980s, with concerns there for the Colorado River Basin in particular. And it's been kind of the same issue that we've had here in California. We've had storms. We've had some good ones. Not recently, obviously, but the ones that did come through were relatively warm. So we've had lots of precipitation, but not lots of snow. And the last few weeks have been warm, not just for California, but for a lot of places in the West. If it's dry, if it's warm in the winter, that snowpack really doesn't build up all that much. So if you're seeing snow drought, that's what's going on. Just kind of this prevailing pattern across the West, while all of the winter weather, the intense winter weather, that's been in the East with the cold, the snow. If you've been watching us on KCRA, you've heard about it. If you've been flipping through your social media feeds, you've probably heard about it there as well. All right, that's enough about that. That's my A block, if you will. Let's take a break here. We'll go through some of the comments and see if any questions. Vicky's checking in from Oakdale. Larry says, little shift in the weather. Yeah, next week there will be a little bit of a shift. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Brian, what are my thoughts on amounts for Saturday, Sunday, then next week? I'm not forecasting any rain for our viewing area Saturday or Sunday. There's going to be some showers along the north coast on Sunday. But everybody else for the Sacramento Valley up into the mountains should be dry. And next weekend, yeah, I'm not talking about amounts for next weekend. That's way too early. Brian is asking, how's our snowpack holding up without much snow in the past few weeks? Well, I went over the numbers for the West. For Northern California, it really hasn't changed over the last couple of days. Percentage-wise, we're still in the upper 50s as far as compared to normal for right now. Compared to our average peak, we're somewhere in the upper 30s, so a little over a third of what we should have for the entire season. Not much has melted off, but it's not going to stay that way for long. But we haven't been building snow, which is not good. Brian is asking about, he's from Roseville, does the extended forecast show many stronger storms within the next few weeks? I can tell you within the next week we don't see anything strong. It's going to be chilly, it's going to be unsettled, but we don't see any big wind events. We don't see any 1, 2, 3 inches of rain for the valley, feet of snow for the Sierra. I don't see anything like that. And really once we get beyond, say, 10 days or so, whatever the models are showing us isn't really all that reliable. We'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah, Lamont says he's kind of concerned about the Sierra snowpack. Yep, lots of people are. Whether you're a skier, a water manager, someone who just likes the security of having a full snowpack and full reservoirs. Yeah, not fun to be this dry at this point in the year. And Steve is asking about the weather for Valentine's weekend. All right, so some questions about the forecast. So let's get into it here. We're going to start with the big picture. So this is what we call the upper level forecast map. We're looking at about 15,000 feet up in the air, 20,000 feet or so. Maybe closer to 30,000 feet. It's close to where the airplanes are flying. And you can see here the flow of wind. That's what those little barbs and lines are. The solid lines, those are lines of constant height. You can basically think of them as, picking out where areas of high and low pressure are. This is a high over northern Utah. You can see, follow the flow of air where it goes up like this, we call that a ridge, and where it comes back down over the eastern U.S. I know the state lines are kind of hard to make out. This is the west coast right here. But this line dipping south over the east coast, that's where the cold is coming from. So ridges tend to be warm and dry, troughs tend to be cold and stormy. That's what we've seen for the past couple of weeks. Move this forward in time. This is Friday, so tomorrow, getting into Saturday morning. Little area of low pressure off the coast of Southern California. It really doesn't have much moisture with it. It'll bring a few light sprinkles to the South Sierra and maybe up towards, say, Sonora or South Lake Tahoe, but nothing that accumulates. Watch what happens as we get to Sunday, and now this is Monday morning. That ridge is gone. It's flattened out. That trough in the east, it's also flattened out. The air is almost moving directly from west to east. Call that a zonal flow. When we go from that big wavy pattern to something a little flatter like this, that's a sign that things are changing and that we're sort of opening the door to weather systems coming our way. This is Wednesday of next week, so 6 days out. This is a big trough trying to develop off the coast, but it's kind of tilted backwards, which means it's going to be moving slowly, and when systems move slowly, models have a hard time figuring out where they're going to be and how much rain and snow they're going to bring. So that's why we're not talking about amounts for any shower chances that we see next Tuesday or Wednesday, because this, we don't have a lot of confidence in something like that. And actually, as we go forward in time, this is Thursday night into Friday. See how that low just kind of sits there and spins? Call that a cutoff. Those cutoffs are also really unreliable as far as timing, as far as amounts. And then there's another one. This is next Saturday, so this is Valentine's Day. That's a trough. This is California right here. This could be a setup for rain, for snow, and certainly for cold when you've got a trough digging this deep. Don't cancel any Valentine's plans next Saturday, and if you haven't made any Valentine's plans, you got a little over a week to do so. But maybe make sure that they are indoor plans, because it's not going to be the sunny and 70 that we had today in the valley. Now it's going to be colder. I'm not going to call it a washout, rain, snow, all that. It's too soon to talk about anything like that. But if that pattern plays out, it's going to be chilly. It's going to be unsettled. As far as wind, we can't make those calls just yet. But that's the overall pattern. Let's see how much of this model is built in. Okay. We can get a little specific. We'll start with the near term. That's a good place to start. So this is the NAM, the North American model. It's kind of the in-between of decent resolution, and it goes out a few days. It's not our highest resolution model. It's not our lowest resolution model, and it also, it only goes out a few days, not a couple of weeks. But this is tomorrow morning. Remember, I showed you that area of low pressure that would bring some very light showers. This is the South Sierra over into Nevada. Nothing that really accumulates. Highway 50's right here. We've got 88 here as well. I don't see any issues getting over the summits with that. So tomorrow's fine. Saturday, dry, sunny, fog in the morning. Here's Sunday. This is early afternoon on Sunday. Rain for the north coast. These may be some sprinkles in the Bay Area. Maybe a little bit of a breeze there too. That is not anything that's going to be disruptive to the Super Bowl, to the halftime show. If you're making bets on the Super Bowl, I don't think weather is going to be a huge factor. I don't see anything that's going to make the field wet, or that's going to make it harder for the quarterbacks to throw the ball. There just could be a couple of sprinkles, but that would be about it. So overall, the weekend looks good. It's going to be a little cooler and a little cloudier than what we've seen. There could be some sprinkles into Butte County and Plumas County, but otherwise The Sacramento Valley, the foothills, and the Sierra will be dry. All right, now we'll go over to the American model. This goes out further in time, but we don't get the same resolution that we get with the North American model. So this is starting on Monday. I've been calling for the possibility, see how this line of showers kind of stretches back across Tahoe? I think this will trigger a few light snow showers over Donner and Echo Summit during the day on Monday. I'm watching that forecast carefully. I'm going to be headed up to Palisades, helping our team with our daily Olympics coverage show, Ozone, so looking forward to that. Could be, yeah, Donner and Echo Summit could get a little bit slick on Monday. I don't think we'd be talking anything more than, a coating to an inch of snow over the summits with that. This is Tuesday. That same line is kind of hanging out here, and now we're getting into some moisture. So some snow showers possible, probably around 7,000 feet, so right at summit level on Tuesday. Again, we'd be talking about a couple of inches at most, maybe some sprinkles down into the valley, but nothing disruptive. This is the newest run of the model. This is showing showers increasing a little bit on Tuesday. So Tuesday, at least on this model, trending a little bit wetter. But I want to give you an example. Remember, I told you these cutoff lows don't do all that well as far as predictability. So here's what this model is showing. This is 4 p.m. on Tuesday. 6 hours earlier, model was showing this. 6 hours before that, was showing that. So that's relatively consistent. So Tuesday doesn't look like a washout, but it's a more showery day with some snow showers up into the mountains. And that could continue into Wednesday as well. So that most recent run of the model is not fully in yet. So I'm going to backtrack it to 6 hours ago, the model that came in at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. So this is Wednesday again, just kind of showery, nothing big, no wind. Thursday, showers drop to the south. Friday, quiet-er. But here is next weekend. So this is Valentine's Day next Saturday. This is be colder. This could be highs in the low 50s in the valley, highs probably in the low 30s around Tahoe, which we like to see. Not a lot of moisture with this, but that's a better pulse of moisture going into next Sunday. If this plays out, and remember this is 10 days out, this would be what I would consider something a little more along the lines of a storm. This would have a breeze with it, this would have snow, this would have rain in the valley. That's next weekend. I can't emphasize that enough. And in fact, just to show you the differences here. So here's what this model is showing. This is late Saturday night into Sunday. This is what it showed this afternoon. Same time from a model that was run 6 hours earlier, has nothing. Okay, so here's the early morning model. This is for next weekend, Saturday night into Sunday. Same time on the model from this afternoon. Rain and snow and wind. Let's go back 12 hours. Okay, rain and snow, maybe a breeze before that. Okay, rain and snow. So what I take away from that is that next weekend, Valentine's weekend at some point, it's probably going to be chilly. There's, for now, a consistent chance of some rain and snow. We don't know how much. We don't know how much wind. We don't know snow levels. But if I were you, and if I were booking dinner plans, if I were planning something for Valentine's Day, if that's your thing, you need to keep the weather in mind because it's not going to be the sunny and 70s that we're seeing right now. So next weekend could be interesting. That'll be something to watch. Personally, crossing my fingers. I have plans for Valentine's Day, but I would love to see some rain and snow. All right, let's check in on YouTube here. Patrick, it's 59 degrees in Lakeport right now. Rather watch the real me than the cartoon version of me. Yeah, I shared a post on, what was it, Facebook, my Instagram page. There's a lot of these posts of people telling AI to make a caricature of them, and I know it's all in good fun. They don't look good. I think it's really silly. People are worried about AI taking jobs, and we're telling AI to draw a picture of us so it is taking over our likeness. I don't agree with that. I use AI. I'll be upfront with that. But the end product, me here right now, it's the real me. I'm not an AI. Photos I post, messages I send. If you hear from me on email or on Facebook, that's me. You're not talking to an AI, and I think that's important. AI has its uses. I use it for some things. I use it to look at lots of data. I'll use it to revise scripts. I'm using it to start to write some computer code to hopefully help build some cool graphics here. But what I actually put out into the world comes from here, ultimately. AI can assist. It's hopefully not going to replace me. My goal is to put that off as long as possible. Let's see. All right, just scanning through some of the comments. Cool. So, yeah, we've talked about pretty much all there is to talk about as far as the forecast goes. Just for fun, let's throw up our 7-day. It's just taking my graphics a long time to load. There we go. So here's what Dirk and I put together this evening. Nice Super Bowl logo there on Sunday. Should be a decent day in Santa Clara. It's not going to be bright and sunny like what we've seen the last few days, but should be mainly dry, if not completely dry. Temperatures will be in the 60s. It'll be nice. I mean, the Patriots are used to a lot worse. Seattle's probably used to a lot worse. So they're lucking out there. But notice how the temperatures go from the upper 60s Friday and Saturday back down into the mid to upper 50s next week. So, there's a little bit of a reality check. And remember, if what I showed you for Valentine's weekend holds true, we could be talking about low 50s next Saturday and Sunday with some rain and snow involved. And remember, you can check the 7-day forecast anytime. We've got it posted at kcra.com. We've got it on the app. All that good stuff. Let's talk Olympics for a second. I can't show you the newsroom easily, but we've got all the flags of the world strung across the rafters here. It's very festive. Being an NBC station, we're very excited to be carrying the Olympics for the next couple of weeks. So I've got Google Earth pulled up here. We're looking at northern Italy. Here's Milan. I'll zoom out so you can see. So there's all of Italy. Milan is way up north. These are the Italian Alps. So Milan and all the way up here, Cortina. Those are sort of the twin host cities. So Cortina and Milan, I mapped it out yesterday. I think it's like a 4-hour drive from one to the other. That's quite a ways away. So Milan hosting the opening ceremonies, hosting the skating, the curling, a lot of the indoor stuff, and then Cortina hosting some of the alpine events. There's actually, I think it's like half a dozen different host towns throughout the Alps. And I thought that was really interesting. This is the first time that any Olympic host city has done this. It's kind of a host region. But the reason that they are spreading these different events out, right? You've got downhill skiing, ski jumping. You've got the bobsled. You've got skeleton. Those are all being hosted at different places because they're using all original infrastructure. Normally, when a city is hosting the Olympics, they build all these grand stadiums and these beautiful facilities. But folks in northern Italy said, no, we've already got the stuff. We're just going to use what we got. Kind of like that. It saves time, it saves money, it saves resources. So kind of neat that they're being a little more sustainable with that. So things spread out across a wide area. If you're curious, which I was curious, Milan's elevation is about 400 feet. Cortina up here, the city of Cortina is at about 4,000 feet, but the ski resort in Cortina goes up to about 9 or 10,000 feet. So, sound familiar? Milan sits a little higher than the Central Valley. It would be something up around maybe like Folsom is a similar elevation. And then Cortina is around like a Pollock Pines or a Fresh Pond elevation. And then the resorts, at least in Cortina, are about as high as some of the Tahoe resorts. So some similarities there. Also some similarities in the climate. Temperatures in Milan this time of the year run a little cooler than what we see, but low to mid 50s is typical for them. Overnight lows in the 30s. But it's been wet, so I just want to take you through Futurecast real quick. This just covers the next couple of days. I'm no expert in the weather in northern Italy. It takes a long time to become an expert in something. I've been here for 4 years and I'm still learning. But I can give you a general sense. So it's raining right now. We've seen some of the live cameras in northern Italy. It's just been wet. We got some high elevation snow, but this is kind of a warmer system. The time here is in local Italian time. That's not the right name for the time zone, but they're 9 hours ahead of us. So it's going to be a wet morning, but by the afternoon, things are clearing out. So just in time for the opening ceremonies. I think they start around 7 or 8 o'clock local time in Italy. It'll be cool, but it'll be dry. So we go through Saturday, showery, maybe some showers in the mountains, but nothing heavy. Remember, for a lot of those, especially some of the ski racing events, they have very strict weather standards that they need to stick to just for safety. Some of those racers are going 70 to 80 miles an hour, so they got to be careful. But good to see, a little unsettled Saturday, but not bad. Sunday looks good. Sunday looks dry. And then it looks like Monday, maybe something kind of sneaking off to the south. So that'll be something I'll just be keeping an eye on, kind of for fun. We'll see how that affects competition over the next couple of weeks. By the way, if you're looking forward to a specific sport, let me know in the comments. I'm always curious. I always like watching the sports that I participate in. So I like watching the skiing. I really like watching the ski jumping. I'm a very conservative skier. I like staying in control. So I ski pretty well, but I don't ski like that. I like in the Summer Olympics, I like watching the running and the swimming. I run, I swim, not like they do. It's cool to, if you participate in something, you have an appreciation for how difficult a sport is, and then to watch somebody do it at the elite level. It's fun. So it's going to be fun to watch the Olympics over the next couple of weeks. Our wonderful web team over there is going to be posting a daily what to watch and how to watch guide on our website. So if you are curious about how to watch the different sporting events over the next couple of weeks, we'll have that right fresh on our homepage at kcra.com. You'll be able to see it there. But wow, I've been talking for a half hour already. So I'm going to go get ready for our 10 o'clock newscast. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to try and actually keep these going regularly. Tuesdays and Thursdays are what I'm going to aim for. But remember to follow me on social media. That's where I post the heads up that we're going to be doing this. I try to post it by about 5 or 6 o'clock just to give you a couple hours of heads up. And then, of course, if you follow me, you'll get the notification that I'm actually live. But that's all for now. I'll see you hopefully at 10 o'clock on KQCA and then 11 o'clock tonight on KCRA.